If you're on this call today, it's because you have some area of interest or a particular personal, perhaps, question that you'd like to talk about. So who would like to lead off today? And let's see if we can kind of get this thing going.
I'll jump in. I'm not shy.
Please.
Hi, everybody. So I work for Capital One. I'm a recruiter for Capital One. And for the last year and a half, I was lucky to take part. I started off in a different position. I was very fortunate to take part in a career transition program where I've been learning and doing recruiting for the past year and a half, and very successful. But as you know, corporate America, when they make a cut at a certain line, and you're below that line, you get cut. So that happened 2 weeks ago. The good news is, I am on full salary and benefits through November 1st, which is great. They provide us with a career coach, a resume coach. If I don't find a job in Capital One, I'll get a very good severance package. I do have an interview tomorrow for a 6-month temporary job, which I'm fairly confident I'm in strong consideration. But so the reason jumping on the call is just like, again, being, over 50 and looking in the job market, it's like, is it as grim as they say it is? And, I don't know, because some of the jobs that I'm applying for in-house, it's like, do I just grab anything just to be safe? Or should I, I'll be offered a pretty nice severance package. Is it worth taking a gamble? So I'm just like kind of curious what the job market looks like out there. I'd be looking for like recruiter, associate relations, project management type of stuff, me and the rest of the world. So if anybody has any tips or their experience, I just thought this would be a good place to just kind of touch base and
Right. Thank you for that.
See what's going on out there.
So I've got some thoughts on it, but I want to ask the group if there's any specific feedback or encouragement or insight that anyone's got to share with Jane. Well, let me jump in with some questions. Full disclosure, you and I know each other. We've worked together in the past. So you are applying for both internal positions at Capital One. So they've basically said, hey, if we can find a place for you where you could be a fit, we'd love to make that happen. So that's a wonderful opportunity that you have there. But the question that I guess I would ask you, beyond how you describe the kind of position that you're interested in, is based on the work that you've just been doing for them, is there a particular niche value deliverable that you want to drill down on, that you feel is something that you could provide in some way for a different group within Capital One, or take that value proposition out into the world and represent yourself from that position, as opposed to this kind of customary reaction that we have in similar situations, which is, oh, I need a job. What can I fit myself into? And I would just encourage you to think of flipping that script a little bit and really start with everything that you've been doing for Capital One now over the past, 5-10 years? It's been a while.
6.5 years. 6.5 years, yeah.
And from where you were when you started, you have grown significantly in terms of your professional insight, your life insight, all of these things that are now different. How would you put that to work? How would you message that?
Well, and that's what I've been working on with the transition coach. I think within Capital One of my biggest assets is my life experience. Especially, you're moving into this, I'm interviewing for this associate relations position tomorrow. And I think my emotional intelligence is what is going to set me apart from the other candidates, being able to see around corners and anticipate things. That's definitely what I am looking at. I do bring a wealth of experience and varied experience. the problem with staying at Capital One is they laid off a lot of people. So, and there's almost like a hiring freeze going on. And again, this is going on across the board in, corporate America in general. So, so just trying to set myself apart, and also too, it's tough competition. So,
Well,
again,
yeah, it is, but I would say there's no one who quite does what you do the way you do,
mhm,
right? And
yeah.
part of your mission now is to figure out how to quantify that and message that, stand behind that, so that you can really distinguish yourself, differentiate
I know what you mean.
differentiate yourself. My goodness. In interviews, certainly, but
Mhm.
leading into the interviews, how you're going to represent that value proposition, the specific secret sauce.
Yeah.
Jane, I was wondering, you said something earlier about you think you'll be set apart from the rest because of your emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Could you tell us more about that in terms of the why and how astute would be the interviewer relative to emotional intelligence? So I guess it's a two-pronged question.
It's a good question. I think part of it is Capital One's a very young company. There's a lot of very young people working there. So I think, and I have a friend that works in that department, and I immediately, when I got the interview, set up a meeting with him and saying, hey, give me the 411 on this department. And that's one of the things he said to me, was like, Jane, your emotional intelligence, your ability to, verbal communication, how you present yourself, problem solving, customer facing skills, talk about that, because you can't teach that in a book. You can teach somebody how to learn a new program, but you can't teach those type of skills of how to handle de-escalation or how to handle someone who's an upset, and give examples of that. So, and I have a wealth of knowledge. John and I both graduated from University of Santa Monica with our master's in spiritual psychology. So, I mean, that's what we learned. So, in the interview, just really being able to unpack that. And I in talking with my friend who works in that department, he did say that is what they're looking for. So, in giving thoughtful answers and just really unpacking that in detail to let them know that, I am someone that can handle those challenging conversations and be able to turn around into a positive, which is, what I've been able to do in my past jobs. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I think you're pretty well positioned for this. And I think in worst case, if you don't get this position, I think you want to look at this interview and this potential role, perhaps as a kind of a marker or a kind of a test case for how you would take yourself out there beyond Capital One, because this is kind of a bit of a softball for you that they're throwing, because you know the culture, the people, someone in the department. You kind of have this wonderful set of assets around this particular position, which you would not necessarily have applying externally.
Yeah.
At the same time, ironically, you want to try to build that kind of those kinds of reference points when you are applying externally. So this is a great checklist for how to go about this in the right way. And I would certainly, when you're, if it comes to the fact that you're going to look beyond Capital One, I would look for similar kinds of fits for you that make sense, and don't necessarily shotgun yourself into open positions where you're not going to be able to make that same kind of impact and use those same kinds of skills.
Great, thank you.
Who else? Who else has got a question along these lines?
I have another one, if you don't mind.
Hi there.
Jane, what kinds of issues are they facing that you will be able to address with your level of emotional intelligence?
So working in AR, people are calling up if they have a dispute with a coworker, if they have an upset with their boss, that type of thing. So it's handling those kind of things, and then assessing, while you're talking to them, assessing like, is this illegal? Is this an HR? Is this, what are the next steps in this process? So it's listening. So it's active listening, documenting, and really hearing what they're saying. What is the core issue here? And then sometimes, from what I understand, it's also just listening, providing that space to listen and help them calm down and decide, is this really an issue, or did somebody need to just call up and vent? So it's all deciphering all of that. But somebody could call up and be in real, we've all been in work situations where, you feel your boss is unfair, or there's a coworker who's inappropriate or whatever. And they call HR and, so I could be taking those calls. So it's really being able to, listen, decipher, and decide what are next steps. Where does this get referred to? So it's that type, of task.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie had a question that I wanted to address. What are your suggestions for having a younger recruiter inquiring about your abilities, not really understanding an older person's transferable skill sets? So Leslie, is that a situation that you are currently in a dialogue with a younger recruiter? Leslie, are you there? Hello? Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted.
Oh, there you are.
I'm so sorry. I'm a career facilitator. I help people and provide curriculum and workshops on all kinds of topics. And I have to say the individuals that are on unemployment or not, that are seeking jobs, they tend to be older folks these days.
Yes.
And I myself am 63 and a half. I'll take the half. But these are some of the questions I get posed a lot. These midline recruiters that are the sort of gatekeeper for those employers that want to tick the boxes. They're younger themselves, probably new in their roles, and they're not looking at the holistic picture of the individual in front of them. They're looking at what salary is requirement, where can you work, do you know this piece of software? Well, I can learn a piece of software,
Right.
but how do you get around keeping them engaged so that you can tell your story of, this is what I can repeat for this employer?
Right. Well, I would have two answers on that. And I'd be curious to hear what other people think as well from their experience. But one of them is kind of preparatory, which is that you want to be very, very clear on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile, what those specific deliverables are that you can muster, and to put some context around those as well. And this is why LinkedIn is a great place to do this, much more so than the resume, which tends to be pretty dry, and having a purpose statement at the top is not going to really cut it. But your LinkedIn profile really gives you that contextual advantage in terms of talking about situations. And back to the circumstances that Jane was talking about earlier, to be able to kind of connect the dots for someone who is not necessarily understanding this and thinking about this from a much more of a transactional point of view. And then the second part of it is to actually engage with them and to ask them questions about, well, tell me more about the position, and does it involve this kind of work, and what about these situations? So kind of push them a little bit in a very constructive and positive way as an investigative reporter, if you will, to learn more about the position, and to really, through your understanding, through the dialogue, get them to see how you would be appropriate and perhaps even excellent in that position. You might get them to kind of dig a little bit deeper as they're answering your questions, to really understand a little bit more about the role that they're seeking to fill. Anyone else? Anyone been in this kind of a situation? I mean, we are going to be, if we are not already, working for younger people. So how's that working out?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
I'm also above 63 and a half, so 65. I'm more of less of an employee, more of a company owner. I'm a founder of various companies. So I haven't really had a job since I was 30. I've worked, but I haven't had a job. I've worked for myself. So working for younger people is interesting. I've always often had clients that were younger than I am. So in a sense, that's who my boss was. My boss is always my client. Now I've relocated and revamping my company now and trying to do exactly that same thing. And what I'm finding is that my potential clients are all very, very young. And the answer to the question is the people that are looking for work are in our age group. I was thinking most of us here look about, similar ages. It is it's a difference. It's a big difference, when you can relate to somebody at the same age, you have an easier time having those conversations. When you're older than them, I think that scares the people interviewing you, if it's whether it's a job or whether it's for a new client. So that is a problem. I'm having that same problem that you're having, and I think we're not the only ones.
So how are you messaging this, Sarah? What's your approach to kind of build some rapport and understanding?
I try to use my experience and my understanding of what those people are going through to try to help them, give them the incentive to help me by giving me a job. So my goal when I go in to talk to a new client or to, and I'm even considering changing up and working for somebody else, is what can I offer them that they can't get with somebody who doesn't have the experience. So it's really all about experience. Sometimes that gets in my way, and I'm in a technical field. So, they want to know, that I know the latest, newest stuff. And that's just a conversation usually. But it's harder than it used to be, definitely at an older age. And that's something I'm working on. That's partially why I'm listening into this conversation, see what other people are doing as they approach, we have great skills. I'm sure everybody here has great skills in the things that they've done. And we want to keep using them. But as we get older, it's harder to convince others.
Michael, I just want to ask you a question about experience, because experience is a really kind of a hot word in this whole process. And people are always saying to me, well, why is my experience not being more valued? Why don't they understand, right, what the experience brings? So to your question and to Leslie's initial question, I think this requires that we kind of step up a little bit more and explain without being professorial or condescending what that experience actually means in terms of how it can be effective today for their particular situation, their problem, the job opening, et cetera. Because one of the things that I've observed is that younger people don't understand the value of experience because they don't have it. So how are you supposed to understand the value of experience if you don't have a lot of experience and you're still trying to kind of create experience for yourself or build experience for yourself? So that's why they don't understand the value of experience, right? So I think one of the things we have to do is circumvent that process and just go right to the solution. Doesn't really matter whether we have the experience or not. We actually have the answer, and all they're concerned about is the answer. So does that, Michael, map at all to your experience?
100%. It's like, why do I need to know stuff that happened in the past when it's all about what's happening in the future? It's like, well, because you don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, but you can't say that.
Exactly. That's right. Um,
Um,
any other comments before we move on? And then I want to get to
yes,
James, because James, you have a question.
yes, I do. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, hear you great.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I've been following you for many years here.
Thank you.
I'm 60, almost 61 in November, right on Thanksgiving for this year. Yeah, I've been out of work since 2018. 2018 was my last, about February or March 1st was my last month of working. They laid me off again. Here in Orlando, Florida, there is a lot of up and down jobs here. There's a lot of temp work here. I was focusing on more and more in the 90s and so on, because that was easier to get. I am a project coordinator. Got my two-year degrees in electronics technology in the middle 80s. And then I took my electronics into the project coordinating area. I was helping companies to build things and order all the parts and do the design work, and using AutoCAD or Visio or whatever I have to do. And I was managing, working with all the departments to get that project done and completed. And I really enjoyed that. And I learned a lot of new things. I really enjoy creating new projects. I enjoy organizing things and cleaning things up if it needs to be, solving problems. I always love solving problems. That's why I have an inventor mindset. And so in the years to come, I did learn about product development, and I got deep into business, financial stuff, and just overall balancing aspects of what it takes to have a very successful life and or a successful business. And now I've learned some things in a way of, I'm noticing a lot of businesses that did close or lay off. There is a lot of non-caring outcomes coming up. They're not caring about their employees. They're not caring about their product. They're not caring about their business sometimes. They're not caring about the banker or the lawyer or the attorney or anybody else. And then you start seeing them lose money. And they just seems like they're only focusing on themselves, what they can make money on. They're not looking at doing service. They're not looking at everybody can win. And it's just so we're seeing a lot of issues out there with the companies. There's a lot of fear. I think the issue is that they're listening to the news too much. I think they need to be focusing on their inner mindset. And that's what I've been hearing from. I was on a 5-day special with Money Reveal team, and they were doing a 6-figure class for the 5 days. And there was people there making, just starting out, there was people making 6 figures already, 7 figures, and even one big billionaire. And every one of them would talk about how they made money in whatever area. There was 8 or 9 different areas you can make money as a side hustle. But most of their talk was all about mindset and how you feel and what you're looking at and trying to be a service to your clients. Because when you create a win-win situation and create a positive output, then everybody's going to come together and help you.
Yeah.
And it just how to put that towards these employers. I'm just having a challenge. I just finished, I'm almost done with, in 2018, everything basically collapsed. I found out that my dad had 5 years to live. My mom had, heart issues. So I had to start caretaking them, and it got worse every year. And then it was basically full time until they passed with COVID and the other complications in September 2021. And then after that, I was the executor and dealing with everything you could never imagine. thank goodness they had a very small 3-bedroom house, but still it's a lot to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, coming back into the work world, the estate's almost done. Can't believe it's taken this long, but it is. But I have no money left over. The estate money did pay some of it, saved my house. I had to let my house go and go into a legal battle, and I had to become my own attorney. So I learned how to do a lot of things. I had to become my own attorney. I had to become I enjoy repairing things and cleaning things up and doing and relating to people and doing projects. And so there's a lot of good things I did learn, and some of I already learned, but everything was I know that I can do something really, really good.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out a way to get the past being out of work for all those years. I did get some help from the Florida State unemployment office, but it seems like they just go to a certain point, they stop.
Right.
And
Well,
it's just how are we going to how am I going to get out there and let them know, hey, I'm not dead. I'm here. I have a lot of background, and I can help your business grow and be successful. And there are solutions out there. It's just, here I am.
Yeah.
And
Well,
give me a chance.
first, I just really want to acknowledge you for all that you have been through over the last 5 years. It's quite a journey.
Yes.
Do it in this period where we had, this is before the pandemic. You survived through the pandemic. Here we are on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And you have survived, and you have, as you say, you've learned a lot. And I also like what you're talking about before, what you were talking about before in terms of mindset, just kind of picking up on the value of mindset and this kind of service attitude that really kind of shone through this seminar, which I guess you went to, and the idea of kind of connection, building these connections. I think that's a really good way of getting into this process for you. And I have to say, and I'd be curious to hear what others on the call have to say, but the thing that came through most strongly for me about your situation is network, and the idea that in order for you to really get the opportunity that you want, it's going to happen through networking. It's not going to happen through job application, because the job application process is just going to kind of get you back into well, what have you been doing for 5 years, and are your skills out of date, and all these kinds of ultimately, trivial questions that employers are going to be concerned about for someone coming in over the transom, as it were. Whereas if you were to focus on your network, get together, you can, lots of ways of engaging in this. Volunteering is one way. Targeting specific companies, building relationships, reaching out to people, use LinkedIn to find the companies in your area that sound like they're doing interesting stuff. Sounds like you could be, part of this process. But to also think of yourself at this point, again, back to this being an investigative reporter. You're data gathering around to find out who's doing interesting stuff, where is the fit, having conversations with people so that they can get to know who you are, what you're capable of doing, what your background is, how it relates to what they're doing. And if it's not relating to what they're doing, maybe it's relating to what one of their colleagues or another company that they know is doing. So there's this process of building relationships that you can, and I would strongly encourage you to do, to really figure out where you stand in this world out there. And you have this solid background, in your field. Those kinds of skills don't change, right?
No.
Specifics.
That's right.
Change. Someone might be using one piece of software versus another piece of software. But, I would say all of us on this call, people talk about digital natives. We're the digital founders.
Exactly.
Right? We came up with this stuff.
Yeah.
So please don't talk to me about digital natives. This makes no sense. Their ability to understand and feel current with technology doesn't mean they know how to use it. So applying your critical strategic abilities is going to get you traction. What you need is relationships, because those are the people who are going to put you into a situation and say, hey, you'd be right for this. Let me call my friend.
How do you, with the aspects of timing, with you need money every day, of course. We are out of money right now, and we're in a possible foreclosure restarting all over again. I had to fight them for many years. I stopped it in March, and then I had to come up with some more money from the estate to stop it again, and to stop from it restarting.
Yep.
And now we're right back here. So of course, yes, I have to network.
Right.
I understand that. I think it's just I'm so rusty on that. I'm going to figure out how to do that. I would rather go one-on-one, but I understand that people don't want to talk to you one-on-one, and that's really sad.
Well,
And
you have to do it two-prong, right? You have to build for the future, but you also
Yes.
have to address your immediate needs,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So,
This is where I have to look at doing either temp work or doing something else.
I would say anything that you can do that you can think of, which is going to bring cash in now to just keep you running while you are also taking those more strategic steps. And at some point, actually, it's going to start blending, where
Mhm.
you're going to find that as those relationships happen, and I would think it's going to happen pretty quickly for you just because of your
I hope
background.
so. I really do. I need it.
I would think that in the process of doing some initial reach out, you may find some traction surprisingly quickly, but
Okay.
I wouldn't count on that. While that's building, yes, I mean, I think you have to kind of look around you in your immediate, neighborhood in all senses of that word. Everyone that you know, all the resources that are out there, apply wherever you can, get into as many meetings as possible.
Okay.
The more you get out there and fall on your face, every time you pick yourself up, you're going to learn something new, right?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to just, jump off a bunch of cliffs here, and you're gonna find some unexpected results from this. You might be going out on interviews. I mean, you might kind of like be sitting in an office waiting for an interview. If you're going to do an in-person interview, if anyone's doing those these days, and the person sitting next to you, you don't know who that might be. That might be someone who has an interesting connection, or with whom you build some rapport. So the more connections and the contacts you make, the more likely you're going to build some traction, both in the immediate term, but also in the longer range.
I'm also
Any other
feeling
thoughts,
like
for James?
I'm also feeling like I am going to be bringing in some business options too, side hustles, because there's a lot going on out there. I've been learning that, and because of what I have learned in the health and wellness area, and
Right.
the losses and everything else. Yeah, there's ideas galore hitting me, and trying to figure out how to focus is challenging. And I know I've been dealing with a autoimmune disease for all my life, and the exhaustion is there all the time, but no time to really rest or to get my energy back. So it's been a long haul. I am concerned about trying to work 40 hours right this moment, but if I have to for a while, I just have to hope that my boss will understand that I'm not going to be able to be, running at 100 miles per hour for a
Well,
while.
And I think
It does take time to heal.
You have to be upfront about all that when you
Yeah.
go in. Leslie had a question for you
Okay.
in the chat about companies you want to steer towards. Have you kind of isolated some of those targets at this point?
I'm feeling like right now I want to look at, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What industries are hot? I know health and wellness is definitely hot.
Right. So but I want to stop you right there.
No,
Just-
companies. Okay.
So as opposed to thinking about what are the industries that are hot, I
Mhm.
would think about where are you hot, right? What are the most important offerings that you can give? And
As a
then-
project coordinator,
yes,
I can go anywhere pretty
Right.
much.
But you have a particular background. So
I
people are gonna
do.
want to kind of look at the industry that you come from. And because you have the gap, and now we're talking about these more immediate concerns about trying to find
Yes.
something
Mhm.
that's short term. You want to be able to kind of follow the breadcrumbs, right? You're going to want to be able to say to them, look, I've been out of work for 5 years, but I know your business inside and out, and I can get up to speed really quickly. And I have all of these assets, and I have
Okay.
wisdom of age, et cetera, whatever it is that you're going to be able to say in that conversation. But give them as few reasons as possible to say no. Right. And part of that is going to be applying closer to the areas that you've been in. So to Leslie's point, I think that's really where you want to be really clear about how you're targeting a company so that you set yourself up for success as much as possible going in.
Yeah, I've been more. My last company was a adhesive company, so I like doing products, physical products, building things,
Yep.
helping them to build, to design, to get out to the marketplace, and everything else.
So look
So-
for companies that are similar.
So
to
I
the
would think
kinds
I
of
would rather
companies
do,
that you work with.
do product type companies. Software companies, I'm not that knowledgeable about software.
Mhm.
So trying to help them to get through the kinks and get out there, there would be some work for me to do to learn how to do a software product.
Right.
So yeah, I can see how that can be, very, very helpful. And anyway, I'll see what I have to do. I have to learn about LinkedIn and Indeeds and how to get out there, how to, I hear people getting jobs with those things, but I don't know how.
Well, there are jobs listed on LinkedIn, and you can put yourself on LinkedIn.
How do you get noticed? That's
Well, because recruiters are, if you open your profile to recruiters, you
Okay.
will be they'll be looking for people with your background. If you have the keywords into your about section and your headline as a project specialist,
Okay.
whatever industry that you've been in, and that kind of goes to a question that John was asking about creating your value proposition and what do you
Yes.
want to do to be specific about that. So the more specific you can be in terms of what you are looking for based on what you've done and who you are, that's going to accelerate the process.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. So Leslie, you have making an interesting point about LinkedIn Learning. Want to talk about that?
LinkedIn Learning has to be one of my favorite platforms to utilize. One, because it has a myriad of classes. That's how I found John Tarnoff. And I started following him, and because I'm an older worker, but I also help individuals that are older looking for work. And so with that, though, I now am an administrator for LinkedIn and learning and being able to provide that tool to my job seekers so that they can do self-paced online learning for software programs. It's helped me learn SharePoint. There's a great entire series of how to create and utilize and network your LinkedIn profile. I've had LinkedIn since it first started in 2002, because that was my first major layoff of working 20 years in a medical career in my mid 40s. Myself, house payment, car payment, my parents had passed. I was the executrix. So I that rang true for me, James.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I do know what that involves. I never touched my LinkedIn after that until I'm 62, writing workshops on how to utilize the tool. I taught myself how to utilize the tool. So if I can do it, anybody can. But it is a place for you to stay relevant and learn how to make those connections and network with individuals to open the doors to prospects.
One thing I think we should say is that LinkedIn Learning is a paid product. So you
Oh, darn. Okay.
you need to be a paid
You could connect with me and I might be able to assist you, James, with that.
Okay.
Fantastic.
How
Okay.
do I connect with you, Leslie?
I will put
You can
in
put your
my
email in the
work
chat.
email in the
Okay,
chat.
thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And I can give you that subscription.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Amazing.
John, may I
This is
share
really
a bit of my
cool.
story
Great.
with some
Thank you, Jennifer.
questions?
Yes.
George Sheth sent me your way and sends his regards.
Fantastic.
And so I have worked as a full-time employee and contracting back to the same company for most of my professional career. So I have a pretty big network. The contract I was to jump to next was in March of 2020, the onset of the pandemic. And so it never happened. And what I have found over the course of the past 3 years, it allowed, actually the pandemic allowed me to, with that contract not moving forward, I focused on my side hustle. But it was very challenging. And what I find now is I really need to and want to get back to work. I need benefits. I need to reinvest in my 401k, especially given what happened last year with the bit of the crash if you were invested. And so I am applying for jobs on LinkedIn. I don't hear back. So I focus on my network and going back and reaching out to people that I know, not necessarily because they have a position, but they're familiar with my work. And I am finding that many of them have taken retirement packages. The area that I live in has exploded with growth. It's expensive, and I am most likely going to have to relocate. But with that, I am finding that remote opportunities are now being pulled back into the office, which means larger metropolitan areas. So it's very interesting time and situation. And my skills are, I've been a marketing program manager for most of my career. So it spans sales, training, events, customer event, production, alliances and sponsorships. I built a customer reference program almost from the ground up, and it was very successful. A subscription service business and also cybersecurity. So it's I've been fortunate to have a vast number of opportunities within that one company. So I think, can you industry hop or jump to a new industry with that skill set? Or do I need to stay in technology? So there's a few things going on there that hopefully is helpful to other people as well.
Yes. Lot to unpack, but if you had to pick a single focus, value proposition, elevator pitch, what would it be?
I think my passion lies with creating a customer reference or advocacy program for a company. But I'm also aware that I'm very passionate about cybersecurity, and it's a very hot area right now. So if I'm getting very specific, it would be either of those two.
Mm-hmm. And what is the solution that you can provide to address a problem that people have in these specialized areas? Because it's got to be, in order to gain the traction, it's not about your role and your responsibility, it's about your deliverable. So you want to be a pain alleviator and identify the pain that your target has, and then be the solution. So the more specific you can be about that, whether it's in cybersecurity or in customer advocacy.
Right.
There may even be a way of having your cake and eat it too, where there's a way of blending those two specialties together in one product, if you will. Are you familiar with the career ikigai concept?
I'm not.
So this is you can find these Venn diagrams floating around the internet. I've done a bit of a deep dive on this and use it in my programs. So this is based on the Japanese concept of understanding your purpose in life. And it's been kind of bastardized a bit for the West, but it really involves 4 questions to ask yourself about your career. What do you love to do? What do you do well? What does your world need? And what can you get paid for? So it combines these kind of key questions. You know, you're talking about your passion. Passion is great. Usefulness is better in my world. And if you can find a way to exercise your usefulness and really provide value and service for a client, for an employer, then that usefulness can become your passion. But it sounds like you have 2 clear areas already that you are knowledgeable in, like to do, and that now you just need to figure out who needs this and what are they going to pay for it? Is it valuable to them? It sounds like these are both valuable areas.
Right. Thank
And
you.
then where you wind up is going to be the downstream outcome of this initial foundational inquiry and process that you developed for yourself. Because someone might say, well, look, are you open to relocating? It's like, yeah, sure. But rather than start with the relocation, and of course, depending on what your timing is, and you're going to have to do what you have to do. But I'm just saying, in an ideal situation, if you start with the value proposition and really understand clearly what it is that you deliver, who needs this, and start developing those relationships and conversations and targets around that, it's going to accelerate the process for you so that all the other stuff is going to get handled. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, John.
I think too.
Yeah, John.
I think too, Jennifer, that as someone who had been downsized when he was 60, it's what I learned is that it's not so much what I did. The question that are in people's minds, the interviewers' minds, typically is, what can you do for me now? And so it's, and there's ways of crafting that by using your past experience to build, to introduce what can you do for me now? So, for example, my last job, I was 60 and my boss was 15 years younger than I am. And, I could tell that the age thing, it was there. It was like, and I thought, oh, hell, I'm going to address it. So I said, look, I'm not, look at me. I said, I'm not a kid. I am someone that has done quite a bit in the area of learning and development. And I said, you mentioned, for example, a program that you want to develop for first line managers. Let me tell you that I've done that. And I can assure you that I not only did it, but I can do it for you and turn it around in half the time that you had expected to have it done. And I said, that's what my age and experience brings to you. And I got the job. And I asked him years later, well, why did you hire me? He said two things. Number one, you never once mentioned, well, when I was at X, we did it this way. Or when I was at Y, we did it that way. He said, I and the other thing he said is I threw you a difficult task, and you did in fact turn it around way before it was due and way under budget. So, that's how I leveraged my age and experience, not telling them what I've done, but telling that person that because of my experience in learning and development, what I can do for you is,
Keep it in the present.
yeah.
Yeah. Really good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jennifer. Best of luck. Stay in touch. Keep us posted. I think you've got a lot of possibilities out there, and cyber is certainly, very, very, not just a hot area, but it's an important area, and it's only going to get crazier.
Right. Yes.
With AI, right?
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right. So that may be a lot of potential. And coming out of Boise, that's a very hot tech hub. A lot of focus on that. I think that should play in your favor,
Yes.
whether you stay there or not. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I find this pulling people back into the office right now very interesting.
Yeah.
And they're closing racks for anyone that is not in the area.
Right.
So.
And I think if you can hold out in Boise, I think the air is going to go out of that balloon.
Do you?
I think a lot of the cities that kind of had this incredible growth during the pandemic because of remote, this kind of flight to the other centers. I think you're seeing some deflation there. You're seeing deflation in Austin, for example. So it's going to be interesting and disruptive over the next few years. I think all of these regions that kind of popped up during the pandemic and all of the remote stuff. And I think the remote still is going to be happening. It's just not going to be fully remote. So interesting. Anyway.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Can you mention the concept that you just said, the Japanese concept?
Yes.
Okay.
Ikigai, Ikigai. And there's a ton of stuff on Google.
I can look it up.
A
Yeah.
lot of controversy about whether it is or it isn't, or how it's being interpreted. I just use it as a kind of a label to get into this question at the beginning of your process about really understanding how to focus on these areas. And what you do well, what you love to do as two polarities really of this important value proposition to kind of get in and start there and write about it. So if you think about these questions and keep notes about these questions and then match it up. It's like, what's your market? That's really always a key question that we have to wrestle with. How what we do can make somebody money. So that's the trick, right?
Yeah, I am noticing that with all the changes, AI and everything else, and because a lot of us are solution oriented, we have a lot of background. We are not ready to, hang up our stirs right now. We're very active mentally and emotionally and everything else. We wanted to be of service and get something done, but it can be very overwhelming because a lot of ideas will hit you. I have notes everywhere on my desk, behind me, on my side, other rooms. I have files from the estate and everything else. It's just overwhelming. So yes, how, I think this is the biggest question is how are we going to be able to focus in a ever-changing world?
Right.
That is a ongoing quest right now is to understand.
One of them kind of has come up, which is this idea of journaling.
Yes, I use that.
To journal every day and use your journal as an opportunity to process a lot of the overwhelm that's going on and help figure out priorities for yourself. And the second is to have a tool, which you may already use as well, to capture all of your tasks, and so that you have something that you can use to prioritize it, whether it's a note-taking app like an Apple Notes, or something that's perhaps more
Right.
task-oriented, like something called Todoist, or there's a myriad of software tools, and to have a system that goes with it. I'm a big proponent of David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology.
Okay.
It's, something I would encourage you
Alan.
to check it out. David Allen, Allen, and the book is
Okay.
Getting Things Done. And the idea is to kind of get everything out of your head, that your head is for having ideas, not for holding them. And that if you're
Yeah.
to keep it all in your head, you're going to fall apart. You want
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
right? You need to have a system to get it all out there, organize it. And there are going to be 4 questions you're going to absolutely want to figure out.
Okay.
The 4 Ds. Do you do it, delegate it, defer it, or delete it?
Okay. That will help. Right now, I need to clean up with what all the mess I have right now. But I also have to, I have to focus on creating money, of course, first, and then creating the future. And there's so many things I can do with everything I've dealt with the health and wealth, and the health and wellness, and the passings and all these things. I have software backgrounds. I have things,
You have to bring it,
so much
present,
going on.
bring it present, and then narrow it down, focus it, move it forward.